You are listening to HOA Catastrophe. She tried to ban me while she stole again. I need your payment. That was the first thing Heather Caldwell shouted at me across the townhouse parking lot, waving a clipboard in a clear sleeve like it was evidence. I had just pulled in after a 12-hour shift at the hospital, still wearing my paramedic uniform under my gray casual jacket, and she was already standing next to my car with that look on her face. The look that said she had been waiting. She took a step closer, and I could see the little black baseball cap under her hood, the phone clipped to her belt still blasting some vendor call on speaker. I borrowed something and never returned it, and she called that theft. That was her angle. I stared at her, my brain still half in triage mode, trying to process what she was even talking about. "What payment?" I said. She tapped the clipboard. "The box of phone accessories you took from the charity drive. You signed for it. You never brought it back. That is theft. And according to the covenants, theft from community property is grounds for immediate suspension of access." I let out a slow breath. Heather Caldwell was the vice president of the Cedar Springs Homeowners Association here in Minneapolis, and she had been on my case since the day I moved in 6 months ago. Every little thing. My car was parked 3 inches over the line once, and she left a notice. I put my trash out the night before pickup, and she sent me a formal warning. But this was new. This was an accusation. "I did not take anything," I said. She gave me that smile. The smile that said she had already decided I was guilty. "You signed the covenants," she said. "Now you live the covenants." I work as a paramedic. My schedule is chaos. I barely have time to check my mail, let alone steal phone accessories from a charity drive I did not even know existed. But Heather did not care about logic. She cared about control. And she had a system. Every rule, every notice, every fine was another way to remind you that she was in charge. Cedar Springs was her kingdom, and she ruled it with a laminated policy sheet and a golf cart that had a blinking amber light bolted to the roof. "Where is this box supposed to be?" I asked. She flipped a page on her clipboard. "It was checked out under your name 2 weeks ago. You were supposed to return it within 48 hours. You did not. So now you owe the replacement cost, plus the late fee, plus the administrative processing fee. Total is $320. I laughed. I could not help it. It was absurd. I did not check out a box. I did not even go to the clubhouse 2 weeks ago. I was working a double shift that weekend. But Heather did not laugh. She just stared at me with those cold eyes and set down a bright cone like she owned the space, right next to my car. "What is the cone for?" I asked. She pointed at my front tire. "Your vehicle is now flagged for non-compliance. If you do not pay by end of business today, I am authorized to initiate a tow under community safety protocol. We can tow first and explain later." That was her line. "We can tow first and explain later." It was the kind of thing she said whenever someone pushed back, and it always worked because most people did not have the energy to fight her. But I was tired. I was angry. And I was not going to let her bully me into paying for something I did not do. "I need to see the records," I said. "I want to see the sign-out sheet. I want to see proof that I took this box." She pulled the clipboard tight against her chest. "You are not entitled to see anything. I am authorized to decide what constitutes evidence, not management. If you have a dispute, you can file a formal appeal. But the fee is still due today." That was the trigger. The moment I knew this was not just about a box. This was about power. And Heather was not going to let me see anything that might prove her wrong. I walked past her and headed for my front door. She followed me, still holding that clipboard, still talking. "If you do not comply, I am also authorized to contact your employer. Theft is a serious matter. Your job involves access to medications, does it not? I am sure they would want to know about your character issues." I stopped. That was the threat. Not just the tow, not just the fine. She was going to go after my career, and she knew exactly what she was doing. My job as a paramedic was everything. One accusation like this, even a false one, could trigger an investigation. It could put my license under review. It could destroy everything I had worked for. I turned around. She was smiling again. "You signed the covenants," she said. "Now you live the covenants." I went inside and slammed the door. My hands were shaking. I dropped my keys on the counter and pulled out my phone. I needed proof. I needed something that would shut her down. But I did not even know where to start. I had no memory of checking out a box. I had no receipt. I had nothing. I spent the next 2 hours digging through my emails, my calendar, my bank statements. Nothing. No mention of a charity drive. No sign-out confirmation. No receipt. It was like the entire transaction had been invented out of thin air. But Heather had a clipboard. She had a form. She had something that looked official. And that was all she needed. Around 6 that evening, I heard the golf cart outside. That stupid golf cart with the blinking amber light that she used to patrol the neighborhood like she was running a security detail. I looked out the window and saw her circling my building, slow and deliberate, like a shark. She was making a point. She wanted me to know she was watching. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my neighbor, a guy named Luis who lived 2 units down. He worked from home and saw everything that happened in the parking lot. "Dude," he wrote, "Heather just tried to get the gate staff to print a public notice about you. She wanted them to post it at the mailbox cluster. They told her no." I felt my stomach drop. A public notice. She was not just threatening me privately. She was trying to weaponize the entire neighborhood against me. This was not about a box anymore. This was about destroying my reputation so thoroughly that no one would believe me even if I proved my innocence. I grabbed my jacket and headed out. I needed to talk to the gate staff. If Heather had tried to print a notice, that meant there was a paper trail. And if there was a paper trail, I could use it. The gate office was a small booth near the entrance to Cedar Springs, staffed by a rotation of part-time workers who mostly just checked IDs and buzzed people through. Tonight it was a woman named Angela, mid-50s, always friendly. She looked up when I walked in. "Hey," I said. "I heard Heather Caldwell was here earlier." Angela sighed. "Yeah, she wanted me to print something about you, some kind of community alert. I told her I could not do that without management approval." She got pretty upset. "What did the alert say?" I asked. Angela glanced at her computer. She left a draft. "Want to see it?" I nodded. She turned the monitor toward me. The draft was short, but brutal. It accused me of theft. It said I was a danger to community property. It urged neighbors to report any suspicious activity near my unit. It was a public execution disguised as a safety warning. "Did she send this to anyone else?" I asked. Angela shook her head. "Not through me. But she has her own email list. She sends stuff out all the time." I felt my jaw tighten. If Heather had already sent this to her personal contact list, the damage was done. People would see my name. They would see the word theft. And they would assume I was guilty. "Can you print me a copy of this draft?" I asked. Angela hesitated. "I am not supposed to." But she printed it anyway and handed it to me. I folded it into my pocket next to the delivery photo I had been carrying since the accusation started. I did not know what the photo would prove yet, but it was the only physical evidence I had that I was even home the day Heather claimed I took the box. I walked back to my unit. The golf cart was gone, but the cone was still there, sitting next to my car like a little orange monument to Heather's power. I kicked it over and went inside. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about the threat to contact my employer. I kept imagining the phone call, the investigation, the suspension, the end of my career over a lie. And the worst part was that Heather knew exactly what she was doing. She knew I could not fight back without proof. She knew the system was built to protect her, not me. The next morning, I got another text from Luis. Heather was at the mailbox cluster again, talking to neighbors. She had brought her phone, playing something on speaker. I threw on my jacket and headed down. When I got there, a small crowd had gathered, maybe 5 or 6 people, all standing around Heather while she held up her phone. I could hear audio playing, a doorbell chime, then a voice, then Heather talking over it, explaining something. I pushed through the group and saw what she was showing them. It was a video clip. Or at least, it was supposed to look like one. The screen showed a doorbell camera view with a timestamp strip that was too blurry to read. In the frame, someone was holding a small box. The person was wearing a gray jacket. My gray jacket. Heather looked up and saw me. "There he is," she said. "The thief." The crowd turned. I felt my face go hot. This was the public shaming. This was her move. She was going to humiliate me in front of everyone, so that even if I proved my innocence later, the damage would already be done. "That is not me," I said. Heather smiled. "The timestamp says it is. This was taken the day you checked out the box. And look," she pointed at the screen, "gray jacket. Just like the one you are wearing now." I stepped closer and looked at the phone. The video was looping. The person in the frame was turned away from the camera. You could not see their face. You could not see any identifying features. All you could see was a gray jacket and a box. It was not proof of anything. "This does not show my face," I said. "This could be anyone." Heather tapped the screen. "The timestamp matches the sign-out log. The jacket matches your jacket. And the box matches the description of the missing item. That is 3 points of evidence. You are guilty." One of the neighbors, an older man I had seen around but never talked to, spoke up. "Why would he steal phone accessories? That does not make sense." Heather spun on him. "It does not have to make sense. Theft is theft. And the covenants are clear. Anyone who endangers community property is subject to immediate penalties." If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA drama. The crowd started to shift. Some people looked uncomfortable. Some looked skeptical. But a few were nodding along, like they had already decided I was guilty. Heather had won this round. She had framed me in front of witnesses, and now the rumor would spread. "I need to see the original video file," I said. "Not just a clip on your phone. I need the full footage with metadata." Heather pulled the phone back. "You are not entitled to see anything. I already told you that. If you want to dispute this, file a formal appeal. But you still owe the fee. And now you also owe a penalty for disrupting a community meeting." "There was no meeting," I said. "You were just standing here harassing me." She held up the clipboard again. "I am conducting an official investigation. And you are obstructing it. That is another violation. You are racking up quite a bill." I turned and walked away. I could hear her still talking behind me, explaining to the crowd how I was a danger to the neighborhood, how I was refusing to comply, how the association was doing everything it could to protect them. It was a performance. And she was good at it. Back in my unit, I sat down and stared at the 2 pieces of paper I had. The draft notice from Angela, the folded delivery photo. Neither of them proved anything yet. But they were starting to form a pattern. Heather was sloppy. She was so confident in her authority that she was not covering her tracks carefully. And if I looked hard enough, I might find the crack. I pulled up the Cedar Springs HOA website and logged into the resident portal. It was a basic system, mostly used for paying dues and submitting maintenance requests. But it also had a section for community records. I clicked through and found the Charity Drive archive. There was a list of items, a list of signouts, and a list of returns. I scrolled down to 2 weeks ago and found the entry for the phone accessories box. It was checked out under my name. The date matched what Heather had said, but there was something wrong with the timestamp. The log said the box was signed out at 10:15 in the morning. I pulled up my work schedule. I had been on shift that entire day, starting at 6 a.m. and running until 8 p.m. There was no way I could have been at the clubhouse at 10:15. I took a screenshot of my schedule and another screenshot of the sign-out log. Then I looked closer at the log entry. The signature line was blank, completely blank. If I had actually signed for the box, there should have been a digital signature, or at least an initial. But there was nothing. I called Luis. He picked up on the second ring. "I need a favor," I said. "Do you have a security camera on your unit?" Luis paused. "Yeah." "Why?" "Can you pull the footage from 2 weeks ago? Around 10 in the morning?" He was quiet for a moment. You think Heather is lying about the time? I think she is lying about everything, I said. Luis said he would check and call me back. I hung up and kept digging. The resident portal had an audit log, buried under a settings menu that most people probably never looked at. I opened it and scrolled through the entries. Every login, every document access, every edit was recorded with a timestamp and a user ID. I found what I was looking for 3 minutes later. The sign-out log entry for the phone accessories box had been created by Heather Caldwell. Not by me. Not by the system. By Heather. She had manually entered my name, manually entered the date, and manually left the signature field blank. She had fabricated the entire transaction. I took another screenshot. My hands were shaking again, but this time it was not from fear. It was from anger. She had framed me. She had created fake evidence, used it to threaten my career, and then paraded it in front of the neighborhood like it was the truth. And she had done it all because she thought she could get away with it. Luis called back. I got the footage, he said. You are going to want to see this. I went over to his unit. He had his laptop open on the kitchen table, the security footage playing on the screen. The angle covered the parking lot and part of the walkway leading to the clubhouse. I watched the timestamp tick forward to 10:15 a.m. on the day in question. At 10:12, Heather appeared on screen. She was carrying a small box. She walked to the clubhouse entrance, paused, looked around, and then walked back to her car. She put the box in the trunk and drove away. That is the box, Luis said. She took it herself. I felt my chest tighten. The missing phone accessories, the charity drive, the entire accusation. It was all a cover. Heather had stolen the box, then blamed me to deflect suspicion. And she had done it so confidently, so aggressively, that no one had thought to question her. Can you send me that footage? I asked. Luis nodded. But be careful. If she finds out you have this, she is going to come after you even harder. I did not care. I had the proof. I had the audit log showing she had fabricated the sign-out entry. I had the security footage showing she had taken the box herself. And I had the draft notice showing she had tried to weaponize the neighborhood against me. All I needed now was the right moment to use it. That moment came 2 days later. I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of a bright orange tow notice stuck to my windshield. The text said, 1 hour. Comply or lose the car. I ran outside. The notice was real. It had today's date, a case number, and a phone number for the tow company. I called the number. A man answered, voice flat and professional. This is Derek at Metro Tow, he said. How can I help you? I have a notice on my car, I said. I need to know why it is being towed. He asked for the case number. I read it off. He typed for a moment, then said, it is flagged for non-compliance with the homeowners association. The contact listed is Heather Caldwell. She authorized the tow this morning. I felt my pulse spike. The time pressure. She was forcing my hand. If I did not act now, she would take my car and I would be stuck fighting her with no transportation, no mobility, no way to get to work. She was trying to trap me. I need to speak to your supervisor, I said. Derek sighed. Hold on. A minute later, a woman came on the line. This is Sharon. What is the issue? I explained the situation as calmly as I could. The false accusation, the fabricated log entry, the security footage, the public shaming, the tow threat. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, do you have proof? I do, I said. Then you need to come to our office, she said. If there is a dispute about the authorization, we cannot proceed with the tow until it is resolved. But you need to get here in the next hour or the driver is going to hook your car anyway. I grabbed my phone, my laptop, and the folded papers from my pocket. I got in my car and drove to the Metro Tow office on the east side of Minneapolis. The building was a low concrete block with a chain link yard full of impounded vehicles. I parked and went inside. Sharon was waiting at the front desk. She was older, maybe 60, with short gray hair and the kind of no-nonsense expression that said she had seen every scam in the book. I handed her my phone and showed her the screenshots, the audit log, the sign-out entry with no signature, the security footage of Heather taking the box. She watched the footage twice. Then she looked up at me. "This woman tried to frame you." "Yes," I said. Sharon picked up the phone and called someone. I could hear a man's voice on the other end, asking questions. She explained the situation in short, clipped sentences. Then she hung up and looked at me. "We are not towing your car," she said, "and we are terminating our contract with Cedar Springs. This is the third time this year that Heather Caldwell has tried to abuse our services to settle personal disputes. We are done." I felt a surge of relief. One problem solved. But Heather was still out there. She still had the neighborhood convinced I was guilty. She still had her position on the board. And she still had the power to make my life hell. "I need to confront her," I said, publicly, where people can see. Sharon raised an eyebrow. "You want my advice? Do it at the management office. They have cameras. They have staff. And if she tries anything, you will have witnesses who are not her friends." I thanked her and left. The Metro Tow office had just become my ally. Now I needed the next piece. I needed to get into the storage closet at the clubhouse. Because if Heather had stolen the phone accessories, there was a chance she had stashed other items too. And if I could find them, I could prove a pattern. That evening, I went to the clubhouse. It was mostly empty, just a few people using the gym. I walked past the front desk and headed toward the back hallway. The storage closet was locked, but I had seen the gate staff use a key from the front desk before. I doubled back, waited until Angela was distracted, and grabbed the keyring from the hook behind her chair. Inside the closet, the air smelled like dust and old cardboard. The shelves were packed with random items, cleaning supplies, event decorations, folding chairs, and a stack of plastic totes labeled with years. I pulled down the tote marked with this year's date and opened it. Inside were 3 small boxes. One was labeled phone accessories. The other 2 were unlabeled. But when I opened them, I found petty cash envelopes, a set of spare keys, and a tablet that looked like it belonged to the front desk. All items that had probably been reported missing. All items that Heather had access to. All items that she had stolen and hidden. I took photos of everything. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. I shoved the tote back onto the shelf and slipped out of the closet, locking it behind me. I made it to the front desk just as Heather walked in. She saw me and her expression went cold. "What are you doing here?" "Using the gym," I said. She looked at Angela. "Did he check in?" Angela nodded. "He is a resident." Heather turned back to me. "You still owe the fee. And now you owe an additional penalty for non-compliance with the tow notice." I pulled out my phone and held it up so she could see the screen. "I have proof you fabricated the sign-out log. I have security footage of you taking the box. And I have photos of the box sitting in the storage closet right now, along with a bunch of other missing items." Heather froze. Her face went pale. Then she grabbed the phone out of my hand and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. Angela stood up. "Hey! You cannot do that!" Heather spun on her. "I am authorized to secure evidence in an ongoing investigation. That phone contains stolen property documentation." Angela shook her head. "That is not how this works. You need to leave." Heather did not move. She just stood there, breathing hard, her hands shaking. Then she pulled out her own phone and dialed a number. She put it on speaker. A man's voice answered. "Cedar Springs Management. This is Tom." "Tom," Heather said, "this is Heather Caldwell. I am at the clubhouse and I need you to come down here immediately. We have a resident who is making false accusations and obstructing an investigation." Tom sighed. "Heather, we have talked about this. You cannot use my office as backup for your personal disputes." "This is not personal," Heather said. "This is a community safety issue." Tom hung up. Heather stared at the phone. Then she looked at me. Her face was red. Her voice was shaking. You signed the covenants, she said. Now you live the covenants. I picked up my phone from the floor. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. I opened the photos and showed them to Angela. These are in the storage closet right now. Heather stole them and framed me to cover it up. Angela looked at the photos. Then she looked at Heather. I am calling the police. Heather took a step back. You do not have the authority to do that. Angela picked up the desk phone. I absolutely do. Heather turned and walked out. I could hear her footsteps echoing down the hallway, fast and uneven. Then the front door slammed. Angela finished the call and hung up. They are sending someone. You should wait here. I sat down on one of the lobby chairs. My hands were still shaking. I had the proof. I had the witness. I had the ally. But Heather was not going to go down quietly. She was going to fight. And I needed to be ready. The police arrived 20 minutes later. It was a deputy from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, a young guy with a buzz cut and a calm professional demeanor. Angela explained the situation. I showed him the screenshots, the security footage, and the photos of the storage closet. He took notes. Then he asked to see the storage closet. Angela handed him the key, and he went back with another staff member to document everything. When he came back, he looked at me. This is enough for a report, he said. But I need to talk to Heather Caldwell. Do you know where she is? I shook my head. She left right before you got here. He nodded. I will follow up with her at her residence. In the meantime, do not engage with her directly. Let us handle it. He handed me a card with a case number. I thanked him and left. Outside, the golf cart with the blinking amber light was parked near the entrance. Heather was sitting in the driver's seat, staring at her phone. When she saw me, she got out. You think you won, she said. You think showing them a few photos is going to change anything. You still violated the covenants. You still owe the fees. And I am still going to contact your employer. The deputy stepped out of the clubhouse. Ma'am, I need to speak with you. Heather turned. Her face went red. I am not answering any questions without my attorney. The deputy stayed calm. You are not under arrest. I just need to get your statement about the missing items in the sign-out log. Heather crossed her arms. I already gave my statement. To management. To the board. To the residents. This is harassment. The deputy pulled out his notepad. Ma'am, multiple witnesses have identified you as the person who removed the items from the clubhouse. And we have security footage showing you transporting one of the boxes. I need you to explain your side. Heather looked at me. Then she looked at the deputy. Then she got in the golf cart and drove away. The deputy watched her go. Then he turned to me. She is going to make this harder than it needs to be. But we have what we need. I will file the report and follow up with the HOA board. You should contact management and request a formal review of her conduct. I thanked him again and headed back to my unit. But I was not done. I had the police report. I had the evidence. Now I needed the showdown. And I knew exactly where it was going to happen. 2 days later, I got a text from Luis. Heather was at the grocery store parking lot on Lindale Avenue, trying to corner another resident about unpaid fees. Luis said there was a crowd forming. I grabbed my laptop and the evidence binder I had been building and drove over. The parking lot was packed. Heather was standing next to her car, holding the clipboard in one hand and her phone in the other. The phone was on speaker again, blasting another vendor call. A small crowd had gathered, maybe 10 or 15 people, some from Cedar Springs and some just shoppers who had stopped to watch the drama unfold. I parked and walked over. Heather saw me and her expression went hard. You, she said, pointing at me. You are the reason the tow company canceled our contract. You cost this community thousands of dollars in security services. I held up the evidence binder, a tabbed binder with clear sleeves, each page showing a different piece of proof. The audit log, the security footage screenshots, the photos from the storage closet, the police report number. I opened it and held it up so everyone could see. This is the audit log from the resident portal, I said loudly so everyone could hear. It shows that Heather manually created the sign-out entry under my name. This is the security footage from 2 weeks ago. It shows Heather taking the box herself. And this is the police report number from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office documenting the theft. The crowd went quiet. Heather grabbed for the binder, but I pulled it back. She tried again, and someone in the crowd said, "Let him talk." Heather spun on them. "You do not know what you are talking about. He is a liar. He is a thief. He violated the covenants, and now he is trying to cover it up by attacking me." I held up 2 printouts side by side. One was the original sign-out log entry with the blank signature field. The other was a later version I had pulled from the portal archive that morning. In the later version, the signature field had been filled in with a scribbled initial that was supposed to look like mine. "You edited the log after I requested records," I said. "You filled in the signature field to make it look like I actually signed for the box. But the audit trail shows both versions, and they do not match." Heather opened her mouth, then closed it. Her face was red. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the crowd, then at me, then back at the crowd. "You are not entitled to see anything," she said. "I am authorized to decide what constitutes evidence, not management." But her voice was weaker now. She knew she had been caught. A man in the crowd, someone I did not recognize, stepped forward. "I am a resident at Cedar Springs," he said, "and I filed a complaint 2 months ago about missing petty cash from the social committee. Heather told me it was probably a vendor error, but now I am wondering if she took it." Heather turned on him. "How dare you accuse me? I have given years of service to this community. I have enforced the rules when no one else would. I have protected property values. I have kept this neighborhood safe, and this is how you repay me?" Another voice from the crowd. "You threatened to tow my car because my guest parked in a visitor spot for 10 minutes. Another voice. "You sent me a fine for putting my trash out early, but you do it all the time." Another voice. "You told my kids they could not use the playground because they were too loud." The crowd was turning. One by one, people were stepping forward with their own stories, their own abuses, their own encounters with Heather's authority theatrics. And suddenly, it was not just about me anymore. It was about all of us. Heather backed toward her car. She was still holding the clipboard, still holding the phone. The vendor call was still playing on speaker, a tinny voice asking if anyone was there. She hung up and shoved the phone into her pocket. "I am calling the board president," she said. "This is out of control. You people do not understand how these things work. You signed the covenants. Now you live the covenants." But no one was listening anymore. Someone had already called Tom from the management office. He pulled into the parking lot a few minutes later and got out of his car. He looked at the crowd, then at Heather, then at me. "What is going on here?" he asked. I handed him the evidence binder. Heather Caldwell stole community property, fabricated records to frame me, and has been abusing her position to harass residents. This is the proof. Tom opened the binder and flipped through the pages. He did not say anything for a long moment. Then he looked at Heather. "We need to talk. In my office. Now." Heather shook her head. "I am not going anywhere. You do not have the authority to discipline me. Only the board can do that." Tom pulled out his phone and made a call. It rang once, then someone picked up. Tom spoke quietly, but I could hear pieces of it. He was talking to the board president. He was explaining the situation. He was asking for immediate action. When he hung up, he looked at Heather again. "The board president just authorized an emergency review of your conduct. Effective immediately, you are suspended from all HOA duties pending the outcome of the investigation. You need to turn over your access credentials and any community property in your possession." Heather stared at him. Then she laughed. It was a sharp, bitter sound. "You cannot do this. I have been on this board for 6 years. I have done more for this community than anyone. And you are going to let some lying paramedic destroy everything I have built?" Tom did not react. He just held out his hand. The keys. The clipboard. The phone with the vendor contacts. All of it. Heather looked at the crowd. No one was on her side anymore. Even the people who had been nodding along earlier were quiet now. She pulled the keys from her pocket and threw them at Tom's feet. Then, she got in her car and drove away. The crowd started to disperse. A few people came up to me and apologized. Some said they had always suspected Heather was crooked, but did not know how to prove it. Some said they were glad someone had finally stood up to her. I thanked them and got back in my car. Luis called me that night. "Dude," he said, "you are a legend. Everyone is talking about it." "I just wanted my name cleared," I said. "You did more than that," Luis said. "You took down the neighborhood tyrant. Heather is done. The board already voted to terminate her position. She is not even allowed on HOA property anymore." I felt a surge of relief. It was over. The theft accusation was gone. The threat to my career was gone. Heather's power was gone. She had tried to destroy me, and instead, she had destroyed herself. The funny karma came a week later. Heather tried to file a complaint with the Minneapolis Police Department claiming that I had harassed her at the grocery store parking lot. The officer who took the report was the same deputy who had responded to the clubhouse incident. He calmly told her to stop yelling and explained that filing a false report was a crime. She left without finishing the paperwork. The HOA board officially terminated the vendor contract that Heather had abused to pressure residents. They also launched a full audit of the charity drive records and discovered that Heather had been skimming donations for over a year. The missing petty cash. The spare keys. The tablet. The phone accessories. All of it traced back to her. The board filed a formal complaint with the county attorney's office, and the investigation is still ongoing. As for me, I got a written apology from the Cedar Springs management office. They corrected the records, removed all the fake violations from my account, and waived the fees. They also installed new security cameras at the clubhouse and updated the resident portal to prevent anyone from manually editing sign-out logs. A few weeks after the parking lot confrontation, I ran into Tom at the clubhouse. He was overseeing the installation of the new cameras. He saw me and waved me over. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "What you did was not easy. Most people would have just paid the fee and moved on. But you stood up, and you did it the right way. You used the system. You gathered proof. You did not break any rules. And because of that, we were able to fix a problem that had been festering for years." I appreciated that, because the whole time, I had been terrified that I would be the one who got punished. That Heather's authority theatrics and weaponized procedures would crush me before I could prove my innocence. But the system, as broken as it sometimes felt, had worked. Not because it was perfect, but because I had forced it to work. The last time I saw Heather was about a month after everything went down. I was leaving my unit one morning, and I saw her sitting in her car near the entrance gate. She was not allowed on the property, but she was parked just outside the boundary, watching. When she saw me, she rolled down her window. "You ruined my life," she said. I stopped and looked at her. "No," I said. "You did that yourself." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she rolled the window back up and drove away. I never saw her again. The Cedar Springs board elected a new vice president. The new person was calm, reasonable, and had no interest in turning the HOA into a police state. The neighborhood felt lighter. People started saying hello again. The golf cart with the blinking amber light was retired and replaced with a regular golf cart that just looked like a golf cart. And me? I went back to work. I kept saving lives. I kept living my life. And every time I saw the mailbox cluster or the clubhouse or that stupid storage closet, I remembered what it felt like to be accused of something I did not do. To be threatened. To be humiliated. And to fight back the right way. Because in the end, the evidence spoke louder than Heather ever could. The audit log. The security footage. The photos. The witness statements. The police report. The two versions of the sign-out form held side by side so she could not deny it. All of it stacked together until there was no room left for her lies. A manager on speaker who refuses to let Karen run the conversation shut her down. The HOA terminated the vendor contract Karen abused, and Karen got corrected by management in plain language, in front of everyone, with no way to spin it. Heather had spent years building a kingdom out of clipboards and covenants and threats, and it all came down in one parking lot confrontation because she got sloppy, because she thought she was untouchable, because she believed her own authority theatrics. And the truth? The truth was always there. I just had to dig for it. And when I finally found it, when I held it up for everyone to see, there was no argument left, no goalpost to move, no vendor to weaponize, no tow truck to threaten. Just the cold, hard reality of her own lies catching up to her. So if you are ever in a situation like this, if someone with a clipboard and a laminated policy sheet is trying to destroy you, remember this. Gather the proof. Use the system. Stay calm. And when the moment comes, hold up the evidence so everyone can see it. Because the truth, when it is backed by timestamps and audit logs and security footage, is the most powerful weapon you have. I will be back with another HOA story soon.